Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so thrilled to bring Naghmeh back here and excited because she's coming to our 2025 Women's Retreat. And I'm looking forward to this is her second retreat, I believe, right?
Yes.
All right, so I'm excited she's coming back, and today we'll be talking about our topic her topic. She'll be speaking about the retreat. But before we get started, Naghmeh, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's Naghmeh. I was, I guess, first known when I was publicly advocating for my husband who was in prison in Iran. I've kind of got thrown into the spotlight through that, and um, my story has been about missions in the Middle East, and of course, my husband's imprisonment and advocacy for the persecuted church. And through all of that, I was completely blindsided of abuse in my own marriage, and which God brought to light when during my husband's imprisonment there was a fog that started lifting of what I had been under, which my body was already telling me that I was not doing well. But so I got involved in advocating for abuse, especially women coming out of abuse.
Yes, well, I'm so glad that you did, and we connected and you entered in this world with us. Your sessions at the retreat last year, I got to attend them, your breakout sessions, and then you'll be a main speaker again at the retreat this year, along with our other three main speakers. So I'm excited for that. We'll be on the main stage. So I got to hear all those, and they're incredible. I just felt so encouraged and inspired what you shared. You talked a lot about the woman at the well, and
Mhm.
it was just I just like, wow, you poured out insights into scripture and just how God sees us in as we go through abuse and how God views those who've been impacted by abuse. And that was just really healing for a lot of women. So I'm
Mhm.
excited. Let's talk about what you'll be talking on this year.
Well, that the Lord will fight for you. There's actually a few things I want to talk about. One is that uh, through my own journey, there was a lot of big names and forces that seemed to just powerful for me to fight against. As I had advocated for my husband to get out of prison, and then I was thrown in the middle of a uh, divorce, which came at a time where I was so exhausted, so tired, and there was a lot of big names and pastors and in the Christian community that were um, kind of felt like Goliaths in my life as I was battling custody and things, protecting me and the kids. Of course, I was not the one that filed for divorce; it was my husband. But I was in the middle of that battle that I really saw God fighting for me when it just seemed impossible. And so I would share some of my journey of how God fought for me and some of the wisdom He gave me in that process of children, especially talking to my kids without confusing them, alienating them, as the courts would say, and just helping my kids process, especially some of the wisdom God gave me with that, and helping them draw closer to God in that season and process on their own and figure out what was going on as I was coming out of the fog for them to also heal and do well. And also just different things that God really brought counselors and people that really helped me through the journey of taking steps um, that wanted to honor God, but at the same time wanted to protect me and the kids, and just seeing how God really fought for me. So that's one of the things, and hopefully some of the wisdom that came out of that um, journey. I would like to share that. And part of it, the other part is really there was a season when when Saeed filed for divorce where it felt like I was sitting in the middle of a rubble. I had been an advocate. I was a famous pastor's wife, Christian hero, and I had just fallen so far from being a hero to being a bad wife and a bad Christian because I had talked about abuse. And I remember all I could think of was like all I could imagine how my life would be. How the best way to describe it was me sitting in front of rubble and just saying, this is never going to be rebuilt. This is just a mess that I don't know how it will ever be built. And then just seeing God rebuild and restore and yeah, that just bring healing and restoration and revive me as a person when I was so tired and I was so just worn to someone who God just refreshed and revived. And yeah, so just I'm going to share a little bit about that, coming from rubble to really seeing restoration.
Ooh, I'm excited with our theme, Redeemer, and about how God, I know so many women are coming that feel broken, feel like, I mean, I don't know how to get through this, a divorce and coming out of abusive marriage, especially in today's time with the I know it's catching on, but for the most part, at least, and it was very much like, okay, now you're a bad wife and
Mm-hmm.
you're exiled probably a lot of times from your church, community, and everything else. So broken. You don't God can ever bring anything good, and even God would bring from this because this feels like this is the only thing good that can be in our life. And so I love to hear your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts more about that. Do you ever feel like that? Like just like how not only can God bring anything good out of this, but what would you even want what God had that was doesn't feel like there's anything good left?
Yeah, and I think the only thing I thought, the only way to have true redemption was to for the marriage to be restored, and that's what a lot of people thought. The ending, the good ending to this would be a restored marriage, which didn't happen for me. And I saw that actually there can be restoration outside of that. Whatever happens, we take steps that honors God, and we and God showed me that boundaries are actually godly. They're not being mean or hateful or vengeful or unforgiving. We do that, and then whatever happens, if the marriage is restored, which I've seen happen a few times, there's repentance and restoration, great. But if there's not, that's not the result. Is not up to us. Um, and so for me, it felt like there was going to be no restoration if this marriage didn't work out. And so that was the only ending that would really be a restoration, and God showed me otherwise. And also I want to say to the woman, to people that might be in the process of it, when you're in the midst of it, you're so exhausted, you really don't feel like you have anything in you to go through another battle of whether it's separation or divorce or even drawing any boundary where there's going to be some kind of a reaction, or dealing with having worried about what's going to happen to my kids. Are they, if there's any separation, they would have to spend some time with their abuser, or so you're already so exhausted. And for me, it just felt like I have nothing left. I fought to get my husband out of prison. I've been also under this abusive environment, and there's nothing left for me to fight. But I really did see God fight, and I really saw restoration in a different way. That's not necessarily a restored marriage. It's hard to say that. I know some people might be listening and saying, no, the only restoration has to be a restored marriage and our family like coming together again. And that's how I felt. And I begged God and I prayed and I would say, God, I'm giving you this marriage as an Isaac, but I want you to give it back. Like, that's the only way that my life will be restored. And I want to just really share that there's been so much restoration, so much life, so much fruit that has come out since. And it didn't look like the way I had anticipated, and trusting God in the midst of it. Okay, God, what does your restoration look like? What does your redemption look like? And truly being under an abusive environment, you wither. A lot of times you look at photos of women who had been in that environment, and then you look at after photos and you're like, wow, they just like turned 20 years younger. There's really a refreshment that comes. You think, but I want to hold on to this. I want to go back to Egypt. It was so familiar. I want to eat the onions and leeks. And you really want to sometimes go back to that because it's family. It's some kind of like, but in a way it was destroying you, and God saw that, and God is bringing you through a really hard wilderness, which I will share. It becomes it's hard because in the wilderness you really depend on God for food and water and protection and guidance. And there's times where you're like, but what if, okay, I could have maybe endured more, maybe I could have made it work, maybe something could have happened. And God's like, I rescued you, I'm taking you somewhere better. Stop looking back and wondering, like, I missed the leeks and the onions, as the Israelites would say. So I would say that is just trust God in the journey. It might seem different, it might seem not as familiar as Egypt, but he does lead to a place of restoration and a place where you are truly restored as a human, your mind, body, soul. God, as God pours into you, as you draw closer to him, he really does restore in so many ways. And my kids, I didn't know how they would make out of, how they would turn out, I guess. That was my biggest worry, because all the statistics with kids without a father, or, divorce, and my kids are doing wonderful. My daughter is 18. My son is soon to be 17. Their relationship with God is amazing, but it's been a journey, and seeing God really restore all of us.
Wow. I loved everything you shared, especially about the Israelites coming out when they're like, "No, we wanna go back to Egypt where we were in bondage." And it's just like God's like, "What? I'm bringing you to freedom. It may not feel like you're coming to the promised land and you're
Yeah.
in the wilderness, but you're on your way." You don't
Yeah. And you're like, but I want to go back. He's like, did you see how I rescued you? Do you
I
not
parted the
remember?
Red Sea. I did
Yeah.
everything. And you're like, but maybe I could have tried harder. And the
Uh-huh.
slave would have treated me, wait, when I was a slave, the masters would have treated me nicer. And it's like, no, God rescued you for a reason and brought you out because that was his plan for you. And now he's
Hmm.
restoring and redeeming you. And something I thought of when you were saying that is, I think for me too, as you're saying, like you just think like this is the only redemption possible, God. This is the only way this can be good. But is not God the one who made you know how
Hmm.
to create a redemption and restoration for you that can satisfy your soul beyond anything you can dream of right now? And I think
Hmm.
that for me, and you're saying too, like life is so beautiful. I've discovered so
Hmm.
much joy and happiness and so much good things, and my life looks nothing like I thought it would
Yes.
in my 20s. But it's because God created me, and as I've come alive in Him, it's like life is greater and
Hmm.
better with Him and than I could have ever imagined. And there was a beautiful redemption, even though it doesn't look anything like I thought.
And I understand familiarity is real. I mean, there's a part of you that really wants to go, no matter how hard it was. You think maybe I could have tried harder. That was familiar. Egypt was familiar. But I have a lot of, people that come out of abuse, they say, but as a single person, I am alone, or I feel lonely. And I said, we forget that in our marriages, we felt that way. It's not necessarily human that can remove that. You could be in a marriage and feel alone and lonely
Mhm.
and not heard, not understood. And in a lot of ways, like a slave, you're doing so much. Like for me, it was like, and also coming from Middle Eastern culture, I was expected to cook, clean. I was also working full time and to be ready when the kids went to bed to please my husband. So take care of myself. Like it was just like all these to-do lists. And you're basically like, I became a robot. Like I need to look like this, be like this. The house needs to be like this. I need to look like this. And then this is how I am supposed to please my husband. And I was just like going through the motion, exhausted, feeling like a slave. But it was familiar. It was scary letting that go, and I honestly didn't. And, a lot of people say, how did you walk away? I didn't. God took him. It was his imprisonment that I couldn't have walked away. And so that's why I feel like there's so much grace for those who can't. But I know, as like the Israelites, they didn't know, they were crying out to God, like, I'm enslaved. This is hard. God did open a way. So God brings a way for each of us differently. But for me, he just separated me on his own. I couldn't do it myself. And it was during that separation that God brought clarity and said, you've been enslaved. I want to bring you out. It's familiar, but it's not good. And again, I fought it. I said, God, you're going to give it back to me. One day I will go back to Egypt, right? You're just taking me out for a little bit, but then I'll go back to that. And God I didn't know what he had in store for me. And it was just something so much more amazing. And like you said, Lauren, is like, there's a growth that happens when you come out of that, as you discover what you like. And there's
Mhm.
like things in your life that just come to life that you look back and you're like, wow, like, wow, God, what have you done? Like, it's so amazing how I've grown as a person, friendships I've developed, areas I've
Mhm.
learned who I like, what I like. When I was in my abusive marriage, I didn't really know what I liked. I had become the person my husband wanted me to be. And so God has really revived me in a way of like, this is how I created you, be you. Like, and not in terms of the very, the world kind of be you, but he has given me certain personalities. I was, before I married my husband, I was kind of outspoken, but I had lost my voice because that for me had I was punished if I laughed. I was, treated like, oh, you're just like a, sorry to say this, but he would call me a whore. If I cried, he would say, you're trying to manipulate me with your tears. So I really had to shut off all emotion, and I couldn't be the outspoken person I was. I had been raised as a businesswoman. My dad was a businessman. I had this businesswoman confidence. I'd studied pre-med, and all of that was just, and God had given me that personality, and all of that was just completely gone. And God is bringing it back. Like, this is the way I created you. Like, you have a voice, and you want to step into using your voice in a way that honors me, that's not bitter, that's not angry, but it is a voice that's going to bring so much freedom to other women. And I want to add this. I was at a conference recently where victims of Mike Bickle shared their testimony. And what spoke to me in that conference was each woman heard someone else's testimony, and that gave them a voice. So the first woman that came out, she had read about Bill Cosby's victim, what had happened to her. And then she was like, oh my goodness, this is what happened to me. Then she spoke out, and then someone else read that testimony. And so our voices, the Bible says they overcame in Revelation, they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. So our voices matter, our testimonies matter. It's going to help set other people free. Our testimony of coming out of the bondage and walking through the wilderness and getting to that place of redemption and revival and being revived. So I realized when I heard all these testimonies how important it is for us to use the voice God has given us, because you don't know who's going to hear and who's going to be set free as a result, how God's going to use that to set other people free.
Yeah, so grateful you've used your voice because you've been such encouragement to me and so many other people. And I just love everything you're sharing. I'm like, gets me so excited for women coming here and being able to find redemption and hope that are feeling right now. To link in the comments too for a retreat, and you get to hear Naghmeh and other speakers and just be encouraged and find community of people that do love and understand you. And yeah, like Naghmeh is saying, like you discover who you are, and it's so beautiful to become exactly who God created you to, and to, I don't know, find out what I like and what I don't like, and be that. And that's like where you are really set alive, like because that's who God created you, and that's where you will find the ultimate fulfillment. And so I appreciate you sharing that
And
because
you
that's
will
like
get
red.
there. Yeah,
Yes.
and you will get there. It might seem like you won't, but you will. You will get there. There is what I would remind myself in my darkest time was there is spring after the winter. That's the way God created things. There is, especially now, I know it's snowing there, it's snowing here. Um, I come from the Middle
Yeah.
East. We don't really like snow that much. My kids are like, Mom, we can't wait for summer. We're not, so thrilled about the cold. So we have to remember spring is coming. Like, spring will come. There is an end to this. And the same way I had to remind myself, after the night, there is the light. There's the morning. And so you might be in the midst of it thinking, I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. I don't see a way out. My situation's so complicated. But as you trust in God, that's the key. As you trust in God, He will make a way, and you will get to a place where you will be revived. That's His promise. There will be redemption in your life. It might not look like the way you thought, because the way we think, again, is going back to Egypt, but God has something better. And so it might not look like the way
Mhm.
you think redemption looks like, but it's going to be something much better.
Wow, that's a
And
mic drop right there. Keep going. Sorry.
yeah, and this retreat, I went for the first time last year. It's my favorite retreat ever to go to,
I love
because
that because you go to a lot of
yeah,
retreats.
it's I go to a lot of retreats, and I've taught at a lot of retreats, and I used to, especially when I was advocating, but this, A Call to Peace, is my favorite. It was so reviving for me. There's something about the environment, the worship, the fellowship, even the location was just so what I needed. And it was such a good, um, so healing for me, from the worship to the talks to the workshops. And so I really look forward to it. Amazing, sweet fellowships, sweet connections that some of them I'm still we've become good friends through that conference. And so I don't know, is if someone knows someone who's coming out of abuse and wants to sponsor them, is it still possible? Is that, I know the link you shared is for people to sign up, but if someone wants to maybe sponsor someone, says, you know, I have a friend who's going through stuff, I want to send her, I want to sponsor her, or I want to sponsor someone who can't afford it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. So I was there because of the things you shared, but that you gave. But the first one I'll address is that we are a campaign $65,000, and that is to sponsor a retreat. And everybody's like, well, why do you want scholarships? We're getting 600 people, very large group. But there is because a lot of women that go are financially
Mm.
desecrated. Their kids are ruined. They just can't offering it. Second time attendees come to, mostly to first time attendees that are coming to the retreat for the first time, to be able to say, hey, there is hope and foundation to heal, to get back on their feet, and they just can't afford it. They can't do it otherwise. So you're giving somebody the
Mm.
opportunity to step outside the redemption and the beauty that God has for them. And so it costs $650 to sponsor one woman through the retreat. And so right now we've raised $3,000 and our $65,000 goal. So we have until the end of March. I invite you, if you're listening to this and you're like, I have extra money, I would really love to see a woman go and be able to give towards these women, to have this opportunity of fellowship and teaching and just to know her worth and value in Christ to move forward. We invite you to be
Mm.
our, and then you may be like, whoa, well, I have a friend that I would really love to go to this retreat. And I actually know people that do this, that will say, I would love to pay for my friend to go. So if you have a friend that you want to pay for them to be able to go, as Naghmeh was saying, you're more than welcome to give her the money to put there and go, or any other way too as well. People do that. But we have selected those women. There is, yes, so we've selected those women, and those women who are like, well, I still want to be able to afford it. I didn't get the scholarship. There's an economic option, and I believe it's not Lambeth. I'm trying to think of the name. Anyway, there's an option that makes it under $500 for you to be able to go. Is a lodging
Mm.
option that makes it a little bit cheaper. So I would check out that. There's still some of those left. And I cannot believe the name of them right now. I'm very sorry. It starts with an L, I believe.
So are you going to share a link where people can, because
Oh,
you're at 3,000, but you were trying to get to 65,000?
yes. So I will share a link so people can donate. I'll drop that in the comments, and then I'll drop in the registration link. You'll see the different price points to sign up as well. And if you want to give money to sponsor a friend or send a friend here, we would love to for you to do that and work that out among yourselves. So
Is this also for like ministry leaders, like women
yes,
ministry leaders? Is this, or is it just for someone who's kind of walked through abuse, or is it open to anyone who also wants to learn and kind of walk alongside someone who, you know, to
yes.
take tools back to help women in their area?
It is, absolutely. We don't have a track this year that is for what we call people helpers, but we will have
Mm.
sessions. Dr. Deborah will be there, and she'll be talking about turning, I believe it's from broken to healer. So we'll be talking about that. It's a great time to come and learn more about domestic abuse. If you are somebody that is a ministry leader or a people helper, and you're like, wow, I would love to be there as a volunteer, part of the prayer team, or walk alongside these women, we most certainly invite you to come, and would love to have you there. It's a great time to just, especially if you're a counselor and you want to learn more about domestic
Mm.
abuse and how to walk with women alongside them.
Mm. Well, it's what, are we 2 months away?
May
No.
4th, May 1st through the 4th. So that is, oh, it'll be 2 months in just 2 weeks or a week. I
Yeah.
think February is
Yeah,
shorter.
two and a half months. Yeah,
Yes.
2.5 months. Yeah. So we're getting close.
Yes, I'm so excited, and I can't wait to have you back there, Naghmeh, and see you again. And I enjoyed getting to spend time with you, and I'm so glad that so many other people got to connect with you. And you're such a joy, and just somebody who really knows the Lord and walks with Him. And always enjoy my
Uh,
conversations with you. I learned so much from you, and so I'm excited that you're going to be there.
yes, and I just it's such a good place to be restored and to take step back and process so many things and to grow and learn, and as you said, kind of help others step out of Egypt and into this journey that looks very scary, very unknown. But it's really healing to have other women that you can connect to on the same journey, and to learn from each other's wisdom, and of how what God has done, testimonies, that God has given each of us. And, I'm really looking forward to sharing some of these ways God has walked me through it and gave me wisdom that I didn't have before the wilderness. Uh, the growth and the wisdom God gave me through the wilderness, as I left the a scary journey. For me, it was leaving the known to step into the unknown. But I can't wait to share just that journey and how God has truly revived and redeemed um, everything that I thought I lost, everything that I grieved. There was a grieving moment when I was sitting in the rubble and crying, and
Mhm.
hopelessness, and just not knowing how anything was going to be rebuilt. And so in the Middle East, houses are built in bricks, not wood. And growing up in war, when a house was hit, it was just rubble of bricks. And it was, that's what I imagined, just rubble of bricks that you say, there's no way I can put these bricks back up together and make it a beautiful house. Even if I put something together, it's going to be a little uh, shelter that looks horrible. But I've seen God really restore and make beauty out of ashes. Truly, that's the God we serve. And it's good to remind each other of that and tell each other of the testimonies of what God has done. And that's how we overcome. It's by the blood of the Lamb, and it's by the word of our testimony.
Yes. Well, I've enjoyed this conversation. I feel like you have just encouraged my heart, and it gets me excited about seeing so many women get to come and find God's redemption and just be given hope and see
Mm,
the glimmers of what God is doing in their life, and we'll move forward in that. So I can't wait 2.5 months. And so I'm looking forward to it. And
mm.
thank you for joining us here today. Is there anything else you want to say as we close out?
No, just remember, if you're in it, the season will end. There is new seasons God will bring, and you will one day look back and tell other people of his amazing work and rescue. So thanks for having me, and I look
Oh,
forward to being there in a couple months.
yes. And warm weather in the spring season. So,
Yeah, that's another thing. Looking
yes.
forward to the spring after the winter.
Yes,
So,
me too. Well, y'all, everybody have a good day. Stay warm. In North Carolina, it's snowing, freezing cold. So,
so is in
slow
Idaho.
destination. Thank you for joining us.